If you had to describe what Kundalini yoga has given you from all your practice, how would you,
Or
how would you describe?
the biggest thing that Kundalini yoga has taught me is the power of my breath. I didn't know how to breathe before. Breath is our life force, and it is a tool to help us regulate or be like calm in the storm. So it's like a tool set of when I feel stressed or I'm dealing with something that I start with my breath, breathe, and even if it's 3 minutes, noticing the shift.
Maro, maro, nandena hai. Maro, maro, nandena hai.
Welcome, Christy, to Cura Medicina. How are you?
I'm doing great, Derek. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
I'm doing great. So good to see you and have you here on the podcast. Very excited for this conversation and spend time with you. So let's jump right in. First, I want to start off by asking you, what is Kundalini yoga?
Oh my gosh. Kundalini yoga is this, gosh, it's like a combination of ancient yogic practices, of breath work, of spiritual connection, um, being able to activate energy in our spine, in our body, to be able to access our, what we refer to our Satnam, our
Mm,
truth of who we really are.
mm. Yes, and one of my favorite stories is how you started in COVID, I think. You started a daily practice. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, um, I I had dabbled a bit in yoga since like 2006, and I practiced a little bit of Kundalini yoga then, and I was like, "Oh, this is a little too intense." Like, I think I was doing like a breath of fire, and I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna stick to hot yoga." And so it called me back where I started going to a studio back in 2018, and I'd go like, once a week or so. And I enjoyed the practice, and I met one of my teachers, Ramleen, and it was during COVID that she had called me and said, "Hey, you want to do? We're on lockdown." And she said, do you want to do yoga on Zoom?" And I was like, "Okay." So we show up. It was like March of 2020, and it was like three of us on Zoom, and then we had yoga. And she's like, "All right, you want to go tomorrow?" And I was like, "Okay." And so after those days, it was like 40 days, and I wasn't intending to have um like a 40-day practice. So it was like an everyday thing. And then it was 120 days. And then we were practicing this meditation at the end called Kirtankriya, where we say Satanama. And it's a really powerful kriya meditation to help balance the right hemisphere, the left hemisphere. And Ramleen was like, "Now, Christy, if we practice it like 1,000 days, then there's like mastery." And something about that, I was like, I am in. I'm going in. So we just kept on going. And after 500 days of doing this practice every day, uh, I Ramleen was already asking me like, "Oh, I can't lead this day. Will you lead?" And I was just like, "I don't like
Hmm.
I don't know how to lead yoga." And she's like, "That's how I learned." So she would give me some tips or some kriyas, and I started leading. And then after 500 days, I was like, "I think I want to just actually get trained on how to lead." So I reached out to um, one of the teachers that I went to the studio with in 2018, Priya. And I asked her if she was leading level 1 Kundalini training. And she said, I'll let you know. And then I heard from her a couple months later. And she said, okay, yeah, we're going to have a Kundalini yoga teacher training. So I signed up, and that was, I think, in 2001
Wow.
where I
Beautiful.
started that practice. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had the great opportunity to be on a couple of those classes with the two of you, or several of you. And what I are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, you're frozen. You're so blissed out, you were totally frozen. Um, so just for people, because I've done a few Kundalini yoga classes here in town, also with a friend of mine who leads them, and maybe you can talk a little bit about, because when we talk about yoga, everyone thinks of, hatha yoga, or the type of yoga that's very asana based. You're
Mm-hmm.
doing different it's more physical, if you will. Like your
Mm-hmm.
dog is doing some Kundalini yoga right now.
I know. That's
And
Scout in the background.
yeah. And so maybe explain a little bit about how a class like the typical class. What is what is the class like? Yeah.
So a class consists of, well, we tune in. So we'll chant, we'll open up our throat, we'll tune in to our higher selves. So that's a Om Namo Gurudev Namo. We'll chant that, tune in, connect with our intention, and we'll often just open up our body afterwards,
Mm,
move a bit, and then we transition into doing what's called a kriya. And a kriya is a set of postures, could be pranayama, like breathing, movements, and they're timed. So it's like practicing each movement for maybe it's a minute and a half. And those movements, and what's cool about the kriyas is there's kriyas to work on your immune system. There's a kriya that is a basic spinal kriya to help open up your spine. So there's like there's kriyas called the kriya for elevation, which is one of the first ones I practiced for 40 days in teacher training, where it literally it just like works from the core, from our root chakra up.
mm.
It's like it elevates the energy. And how I like to how I relate to it, it's like these things help raise our vibration and actually clear any energy. So then we will have a kriya, and once we're done with the kriya, then there's a deep relaxation, which is important, to be able to relax your nervous system. A lot of the work is to help strengthen our nervous system, especially holding. We do a lot of like posture holding, breath work. And in the beginning times, I feel like my arms wanted to burn off. It was just, it's like it's a practice. And then after we relax, it's like, okay, then it's time to meditate. And we'll
Okay.
do a meditation, and there's a bunch of meditations to do. And ideally, we'll do a meditation for 11 minutes. And so those are the three components that have the container of like a traditional Kundalini yoga class.
Amazing. And of course, I know you also do sound work. And
Mm-hmm.
has the Kundalini helped inform the sound baths that you do and that sort of thing? Do you feel like there's some correlation between those two?
Yes. So th- my journey, it started with yoga to help open me. It's like, what I do for a living is I own an IT business, and I've been doing this work ever since I was 18. This is very fast paced. And there was something about yoga, and specifically Kundalini yoga, that helped me connect to myself. And especially with my brain being so, wired to engineer and solve, to be able to take those moments of how I relate to it's like self-care, that's helped me. And then when I would do the Kundalini yoga classes when we were together, like in 2018 and 19, during the meditations, I would hear the gong, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is that?" And and right before the pandemic, the studio, they offered a gong training, and I took the gong training, and it was like gong at first sight. I just loved it. I loved it. I was like, "Oh my gosh." And it spoke into my love of music, and it spoke into my love of rhythm and the drums. So I just started playing, and one of the women that um taught me how to play the gong, Sally, I got some private lessons from her, and so I took a few lessons, and she said, "You don't need any more lessons. You just need to get a gong now and start playing and start
Mm.
sharing." So it helped open me, and I learned that I don't play the gong, that the gong plays me. And that's how I also relate to yoga. It's like when I surrender and I get on my mat, it's like I can just really drop in and just allow it to allow whatever to come through. And some days, especially during the pandemic and just, the last 5 years, or just in life, just being able to start my day on my mat really helps me center and be intentional.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought the gong in because I feel like Kundalini yoga has really helped popularize the gong. Like
Uh-huh.
I didn't really see the gong around that much before, but when Kundalini yoga, kind of took off, all of a sudden everyone was playing the gong. And it's such a powerful instrument. Can you talk a little bit about more what it's like to play the gong and,
Mm.
um, different techniques maybe, because a lot of people, maybe they get a gong and a mallet but what I've seen you do is, you work with different vibrations on the surface of the gong. And do you know anything about the history of, Kundalini and the gong?
Yeah, so Yogi Bhajan came to the West and he brought Kundalini yoga. Like he created Kundalini yoga a- as its form of, like there's several different yogas that he kind of put together and formed Kundalini yoga. And he would play the gong during some of the sessions. And one I met, and he's one of my sound teachers, Don Conroe, was one of Yogi Bhajan's like original like 5 teachers. So Don Conroe, dedicated his life to sharing the gong. And the guy's 91, and he's out there in the world sharing gong, and I've learned from him. So that was another thing. I met him after, I think, in 2001, and I've done at least 4 trainings with him, and he has a whole, like, lots of different ways to play the gong and a lot of humility around playing the gong. And one of the things that I love how he's taught me to play is first, like, hit the middle. And I've heard some people say, don't hit the middle because that's like the heart. But there's a power there, pressing and hitting the middle of the gong, the heart of the gong, to connect my heart with the heart of the gong. And then there's this whole way, like hitting the sides. Don Conroe we've had times in trainings where the gong is numbered from 1 to 9. And there are pages where you can play different things based on the numbers. Like you can play 369, 369. And it's a gong playground, essentially. And how I connect is, and what I learned from Don is, see how it makes you feel. allow the gong to play you. And if you come up with anything, let us know. And I love that way of playing because it's like, it's just allowing it to flow. And when I play the gong, I'll practice, and I don't practice before I like play. It's not like a performance. And I I show up with my intention of what I want to share, like opening people, opening our hearts or sharing love. And then I just allow it to take over. And sometimes, and I just listen. It's just a lot. It's really activated deep listening. And the gong is so powerful. It's the most like powerful sound healing instrument with all the vibrations and the resonance. And that works so subtly in our body
Mm.
because we're made up of 70% water. So it's like that vibration moving through, doing that work. And there's studies on it that it's helpful for us. It helps us really drop in. And so I love the sake of playing it, just playing and hearing like, oh wow, it's doing this. And just like I'm gonna ride with it.
Beautiful. Yeah, I really love the gong. I love when you play it too.
Mhm.
Yeah. So let's get to your recent trip to India, which, as I've been in and out of India most of my life, and I always like to describe India like this. It's when I'm in India, I can't wait to leave. And when I've left India, I can't wait to go back because
Mm.
it's such an intense place to be that
Mm.
sometimes, well, for me when I was younger, it was so intense that I didn't know how to hold all that energy and the smells and the sounds and, the crazy driving and all that. But then when I left, I longed for that again. I longed to feel all those senses deeply. So, yeah, I'm
Mm.
just maybe back up a little bit because I think you went with your Kundalini teacher, which is
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
So maybe describe a little bit about how that came up and, um, yeah, what was the impetus for you joining the
Mm.
trip?
Mm. Yeah, so I learned about the trip last November is when I heard Priya, and Priya is from India. And so she's from like close to New Delhi is where she grew up. And so she lives out here in California. And when I heard that she was hosting a trip, it was like I'm in. And what a better time to go like with Priya, who's from there. So it was a really amazing opportunity for me to go to, and it was titled Soul Journey to India. And so we went with all of our fellow yogis, people that like Sally, who I learned the gong from, Priya's husband Peter, who's also one of our teachers, um, many people that I've just done yoga teacher training with. So there was like 25 of us. So it was really cool. It was such a reunion. And I was curious. I was a little nervous. Think it was I mean, aside from going to the Amazon rainforest, that was like the furthest trip I've ever gone away from home. And I didn't know what to expect other than I was just like, wow, how is it going to be? How is it going to be to go there, you know? So, yeah.
Where did you land? Which place did you land?
So this trip was a southern trip.
Okay.
So, uh we landed into we flew into Bangalore, and we stayed there for a few days, and that was where everyone, kind of like met up together. And then we took a bus. We had a private bus with a driver. And then we drove to this city called Mysore. and we hung out there a couple days and went to just these amazing temples. Um, just seeing the temples and just seeing the temples in the city. That was something that I loved. I loved going and just seeing how I love to see how people pray and just see how people are their devotion. And so yeah, we went to Mysore and then we went up into the mountains to Uti and we went through a wildlife sanctuary. And so being able to actually see elephants in the wild was amazing. And just being on the river, and we went to tea gardens, and then we went to Coimbatore, and that was like a big city there. And we stayed there for a couple days. And then we went down to Kochi, which was like down more. It felt the closest to home here in California. I think just because it was closer to the ocean. So it had a bit of a beach vibe. And then we ended our trip 4 days. We stayed at an Ayurvedic resort. And that was incredible just to integrate. And so that was the timeline of our trip, and we were together for a little over 2 weeks.
Amazing.
I was there for a few weeks in total. Yeah.
And what did when you first were in like the craziness of India, what did you feel?
Oh my gosh. I was like, wow. It was notable, the driving. That was, number one, driving on the opposite side of the road that I'm used to. Street lights, they don't apply there. People just get in wherever they get in. I didn't have, like, I wasn't afraid, and seatbelts don't really happen in those cars. And then you take the tuk-tuks, which were a blast. It was like, a three-wheeled, like, motorcycle cart, and I was really observant of how people were with each other. Like, our tuk-tuk driver cut off a motorcycle driver, and the motorcycle driver went up to him and he said, "You scared me, brother." And it was like, that was the conversation versus like here, it's a whole different thing. And so it was just, there's this chaos in a way, like a lot of people everywhere. Yeah, there was smog. I noticed the smog. I noticed um, where there was poverty. I noticed just a lot of like some of the buildings super old and not clean in a way, and noticed like what joy people had and how much like of their heart. I could really feel their heart, and I felt very safe. Like it wasn't anything about, like I never felt unsafe there. I was just like, wow, here we are together, It was really it was exciting. It was really exciting to see and explore.
Beautiful. And when you went to the temples, were you guys following any particular goddess? Or I know you sent me a picture of the Hanuman temple. That was beautiful. But were
Yeah.
I imagine she picked various cities and various temples based on Kundalini yoga's lineage, or was it kind of a mix?
It was such a mix. Yeah, we had our Kundalini yoga practice most mornings. So that was one of my favorite moments of us just being together in a group. Like we would have yoga on the rooftop and different areas. So we would have that. And it wasn't anything in particular. We like, let's go and see this really old temple m- that was considered ruins, and just being able to observe the beauty in it and just seeing all the different statues. And um we got to see stuff that was really old, and that was really cool. And just seeing how people are like we tuned into how people really prayed, like their devotion, like sometimes there would be a line for an hour just to get like a blessing from a goddess. And I went through the line, And it was really cool to experience that blessing. Like, I hadn't experienced that before, like, you know, feeling the blessing here, but I felt something inside, and I felt it in my heart, but it was deeper. And the power of when people come together in the same intention and how that energy is. So, one of the spots that was one of the most memorable is when we went to the Isha Center, which is Satguru's Isha Center. And that place was remarkable. It was, number one, you see this 100-foot statue of what's called the Adiyogi, and she's like in this meditative state. And so we practiced just meditating with her. And then we would go into different areas and meditate. There was another area that we went where we went into the baths and went into the water. And we were there for maybe half a day, and I could have stayed there for a couple of days. That's for sure. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love this." And what did I love about it? I felt like I dropped into a deeper part of myself that I hadn't experienced. And there's something there that I love being in that space of what I would perceive as peace and calm, and like this, I'm just being. So we had those opportunities to explore those different experiences between different temples. We went into a Catholic church, and just seeing how that was in India, and being and then also seeing Jesus sometimes, like, it was just a whole mix. So yeah, it was really beautiful. It was really beautiful to explore.
Did you notice the devotees or the people that were at the temples making offerings to the temples? Because I know that's a really strong part of the
Mm.
practice, that when they visit a goddess temple or the Hanuman temple, or to come with an offering, whether it's a prayer or some fruit or flowers. I don't Did you notice that kind of going on too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we offered when we were at the Isha Center, lotus flower. So we offered that. I saw in one of the temples, or people were offering money. I saw that. I also saw people were offering flowers. So it was, yeah, it was cool to see the different offerings and also to offer. Yeah.
Beautiful. What'd you think of the food?
It was, I mean, it was a whole nother level. Like, I really felt infused by spice. Like, it wasn't like hot, but it was spicy in a way. And I remember what Priya said some time ago. She said, when I moved to the States, I was like, the food it's like bland compared to what she's used to. And I felt really infused by it. I was like, how am I going to eat this for every day? But I loved it. I tried everything, like the different curries and the chutneys, and just having it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, essentially, is how we did it. And also we went to this restaurant and we just started practicing more eating with our hands, and the power of touching your food and, you know, eating with your hands. And then we had henna. We had a point where we turned our hotel room into the henna hut. Several of us got henna, and then, they had to dry. So then we were feeding each other. So that was cool too. So yeah, I loved it. And one of the things that, actually pretty much everything that I brought home had to do with the different teas, and the masala chais, and the essential oils. We went through drove through a eucalyptus forest and got fresh eucalyptus oil. It was really cool.
So now I want to hear your high point and your low point of the whole trip.
My high point and my low point. The high point was the dance party on the bus. I didn't bring a drum, so for those of you who don't know, I love to play the drums, and I didn't bring a drum with me. And I want to say within 3 days I had a drum. So, uh, we were on that bus for several days. Like we would move every couple days, and one of the days we had a 3-hour dance party on the bus. Played the drums. We were just there, and it was just so much joy. It's so much joy being together. And I think it was just like a reflection of all of us letting go and an opening. So that was one of the high points that just brings a smile to my face. Um, I'm looking to see what a low point would have been or would be. I did notice, like, there was one morning that I meditated on, like, one of the rooftops where we were staying, and I could really smell the smog. Like, I could taste it. And that was a teaching for me to, like, be with it. Like, and something that came was, like, surrendering my preferences to how I think it should be um, yeah, how I think things should be, and it's been a lesson of this trip as being flexible. We would talk about how, we had a set schedule, but sometimes it was like on India time. And then, how to be flexible during that. And I think those are some of the moments where, as a group, especially after traveling together for a week, that sometimes it's not like people didn't get along, but it's like we have preferences. Like, okay, I want it to go this way, or maybe this is taking a little bit longer, or this trip is. So I noticed that within myself, and that was just a tune in for me to just allow it, just allow. And I think that's what I learned from the people is they have their circumstances, they work hard, they do everything, they're dealing with what they're dealing with, and they put a smile on their face and they just kind of roll with it. So that's one of the lessons. Yeah. Thank
Beautiful.
you.
If you had to describe what Kundalini yoga has given you from all your practice, how would you,
Er,
how would you describe that?
the biggest thing that Kundalini yoga has taught me is the power of my breath. I didn't know how to breathe before. And breath is our life force, and it is a tool to help us regulate or be like calm in the storm. So it's like a tool set of when I feel stressed or I'm dealing with something, that I start with my breath. I breathe, and even if it's 3 minutes, noticing the shift. And I'm so grateful of that learning. And I would say the second part is it's taught me how to strengthen my nervous system in a way where I know how to self-regulate. And as I've been saying recently, what's been coming is warm from the inside, like warm myself from the inside. So if I'm cold, drink a cup of tea. If I am dealing with something that that I have everything in me that I need to warm myself from the inside. And the rest of it will be okay. It's like when I fill my cup, then I overflow. And that's been a whole different way than I've been taught. And I think a lot of us have been taught. It's like, you serve until you have nothing left, or you just go until you have nothing left. And Kundalini yoga has taught me the power of practice. And when you think practice, that's like, okay, you practice. That's how you get better at it. That's how I get better at my breath. So I am so grateful for the opportunity to practice and learn and to breathe.
Yeah, breathing's good. I've been playing the didgeridoo for a few years now, and I feel like I'm just meeting my breath for the first time in my life. Because it's such a, well, it's circular breathing. So when you don't do it correctly, there's no breath. So there's no, you actually you feel what it's like not to have a breath or a deep breath, and yeah, I really recommend anyone out there who, is maybe starting their journey or is looking for a practice. It doesn't have to be Kundalini yoga. It can be, but there are plenty of breath work um, techniques out there, Wim Hof and Pranayama. And I mean, there's so many, and just to add that to a daily practice is so powerful. And of course, if you can find a modality that offers that as part of the practice, like Kundalini yoga, that's
Yeah.
very powerful too, because then it becomes one of the foundations of a much bigger practice, and
Yes.
I love that. And if anybody is thinking about going to India, do you have any recommendations? Like,
Oh my
should they?
gosh.
Yeah.
If they're going to India, I really loved going to the South, and I loved going to Kochi. I loved being in the city. I love being in Uti and in the mountains where there's a river and the tea gardens. I also really enjoyed staying at an Ayurvedic resort. That was really cool to be seen by an Ayurvedic doctor and learning about my doshas.
Yeah, tell us a little
And
bit more about, like, what that was like, that whole process. What kind of treatments did you get, and what was the food like? Yeah, tell us more about that.
mm, yeah, so we went to this Ayurvedic resort, and we were all seen by the resident Ayurvedic doctor that was there. So I confirmed what is known as a dosha, which is I guess I relate to as like our constitution of what our like we're made of five elements: water, ether, fire, earth. And based on that, um, the whole idea is to where to find balance through food, through different practices. Um, and so what I met with him, and he just looked at my hands. He's like, okay, you're a Pitta Kapha. And he said, once you're done being on vacation, eat less sugar. And he said, drink more water, sip your water when you drink it. And he he offered a treatment, and I had two treatments, a massage, and there's lots of oils in the massage, steam, um, take a shower afterwards, so it's very immersive like that. And then I also had a treatment where I had warm oil poured on my forehead for about 45 minutes. And that was something. It was like something, it's like I had visions. It was very calming. And I also heard eat a rainbow every day. So those are some of the things that, and I also did some additional reading on it of a lot of it I'm already doing. And a couple little tweaks, like the power of eating, for me, warm food in the morning. Like sometimes I'll have like overnight oats So like making those shifts, but like bringing in the heat. So some of the people that were with us, they would have treatments twice a day. So it was intense for them. But yeah, there's a whole world to it. And I feel like I'm just tapping in on it, but I'm really committed. I love plant medicines, like the teas and foods and different things that I can do naturally to help infuse my body. And I feel like this is, Ayurvedic is so in alignment with that.
Amazing. I would really love to go to a Ayurvedic retreat someday. So I thought it
Mhm.
would be fun to close out the podcast with the Satyam practice together.
Okay.
Just to give people a little bit of a feeling of what Kundalini yoga is like, and to they could even do it along with us, maybe explain people
Mm.
what we're going to do and how it works.
Okay. And we can just chant it, right?
Yeah,
Just
we'll
chant
do
it out. Okay.
the shorter
Okay.
version, whatever. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll do, it's called Kirtankriya, and it is it's an active meditation where we're typically sitting in easy pose, and our spine is straight, and our chin is tucked slightly, and our hands are on our knees. And what we're doing is we'll start by chanting Sa Ta Na Ma. And we're actively engaging what's called mudras, like these points, pressure points in our fingers. And Sa Ta Na Ma. It's balancing out. It's like Sa Ta Na Ma. They're seed sounds like Sa Ta Na Ma. And so
Maybe
we'll
explain
chant.
for people that aren't watching the thumb, and how each one goes to the fingers.
Yeah, there's like the oh gosh, there's the sun, and then you have like the moon, I mean, and the communication finger,
Yeah,
and
but it's thumb
thumb, so
to
thumb to your index finger,
yeah.
then your thumb to your middle finger, and then your thumb to your ring finger,
Yeah.
and then your thumb to your pinky finger.
Good.
Sa Ta Na Ma. Sa Ta Na Ma. And you want to put a little bit of pressure on your fingers. And we're chanting it. We'll chant it out loud. And we'll chant it, ideally in a meditation, 27 times. You chant it out loud. Sa Ta Na Ma. Sa Ta Na Ma. And then after 27 times, then we will whisper it. Sa Ta Na Ma. Sa Ta Na Ma. And then for 27 times, we'll mentally vibrate it. And we have a track that we typically will play, so it kind of cues it, but we can do part of it together. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Okay. Okay.
You lead. Yeah.
Okay. We'll inhale together. Exhale. And here goes. Sa Ta Na Ma. 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 Sa Ta Na Ma.
Satanama, Satanama, Satanama,
Satanama,
Satanama,
Satanama, Satanama,
Satanama,
Satanama,
Satanama,
Satanama, Satanama,
Satanama,
Satanama,
Satanama,
Satanama, Satanama,
Satanama,
Satanama, Satanama, Satanama, Satanama. And then we'll whisper it,
Mm,
and then it just goes. So
beautiful. So beautiful.
thank you, Derek.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that practice.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you want to tell the world?
Well, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to connect with you and to, share about this journey, this yoga journey, this sound journey, this journey of really remembering who we really are. And, just being able to shine and to be in joy and to celebrate this, what we have going on here in this life. So grateful for that.
Ouch, ouch. Thank you so much, Christy. Thank you so much, Christy. It was amazing.
Great. Nice to be with you. Yoo-hoo!
Thank you for listening. I really appreciate the people who tune in to these subjects in this podcast. I created it to share part of my world, and I just want you to know I have much gratitude. I would love it if you followed and subscribed to the podcast so that you could receive all the beauty that's coming your way. Take a moment and please leave a quick review. It would really help the podcast spread and would also let me connect with the people that are listening. I would love to build this community in a very mindful way. And by leaving a review, you help me understand who you are and if you like it. Wishing you a wonderful day, and I look forward to our next podcast together. Hausch, hausch.
Coiled in shadows deep and low, a serpent sleeps where rivers flow. Spines align like trees that grow tall, tall. Sacred breath through the hollow chest. Wake the fire, let it crest. Whispers rise where the soul confessed. Rise, rise, serpent, rise. Through the stars to endless skies. Oh, rise, rise, serpent, rise. Feel the flame between your eyes. Golden threads through veins unwind, twisting paths to free the mind. Waves of light in a spiral climb.